Hi, welcome back. In this, in today's episode, we will look at the final CRUD method, which is the update. We will handle the HTTP put method in this particular format, and we will, once we have gotten a request to update a particular board, which is specified by the name and the board ID, we will then use the information provided to update our date, our record. Uh, so this will be the last and final method. After that, we move on to other things. Right, as usual, we will create a new branch, which will be git part 24. SP, oops, oh, check out. Right, so we just have a look. And so we are part 24, okay? So, and then we will go to the back end. And as usual, we will start, I restarted the server. So let's start by implementing the put method first. As usual, we will go to our controller, and the put method is going to be very similar to a delete or a get in terms of the resource pattern. So we will just say put here. Okay. Of course, we need to import that. So let's here. Okay. So that will be that method, and then we'll change this to put. As usual, we will just like here we will just return anything first. We'll worry about the response a little bit later, and we'll just dump out the value. Let me just return, like updated. Okay. So besides the name uh, and the port ID, the put also requires the the updated port, and the updated port will be in the payload. So to access the payload, what we'll do is this: we will use the at body annotation, just like a post. At body annotation, and then we'll say payload. This is going to be a kboard. Okay, so we will just print out our information. We just console dump out the information. Put, and we'll just put a new line, and then we will print out the payload. So that's our very simple put method. What we can also do is that we want to check the board ID is the same as what is this board ID that is presented here is the same as the board ID from our updated payload. So we can do something like this. We can say if board ID is not equals to payload board ID, then we want to throw an exception, maybe bad request exception. Okay, so we want to say error, maybe say incorrect board ID. Oops. Okay, so something like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and check this guy out. So what I'll do is this: I've got sorry, um, I've got a bot which I have prepared, which we are going to first of all insert in. Currently, the bot looks like this. That's all I have. So I'm going to insert this first by doing post. So if you recall, I'll do HTTP. I'm going to send in JSON, and then you say post API, and then kboard thread, and then kboard. Okay. Right. So this is the new ID. Let's go and have a look at the select the bot. So that's my new bot. We can say order by on, descending. Okay, so this is the new bot that I've just added. So what I will do is this. Okay. Oops. Let me grab the ID first. I've also prepared another a JSON file to update this ID. So this is the one that we're going to update. Okay, so it's just assume that it's the same. This assume that this is the up. I'm going to update, this bot with new this new bot. The only thing I need to change is the ID. So just make the two ID the same. So this is the new bot I've just inserted, and I've, we are now going to implement this update. So the method that we're looking at, it will be taking one of this and updating these guys. And this is what we're going to do. So we'll test out the update first, the method that I've just written. We're going to go. We're going to do a put, and we are going to first of all paste that ID. Then update that thing. Okay. So if you notice, that this is the put and this is the ID that has come in. So this is the body. This is what we'll be taking for updating, and also just to test that the check is working. So let's say if I change the one, if I make an incorrect, like if I put an incorrect ID, let's say I put this, change this to 2, which is previously is 1. The bot ID, I should get an error back request, right? I cannot find that. Change this back again. So now notice that this update it has received the put method. So now we are going to implement uh, the the update itself. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to implement the update. So if you recall, uh, previously, about 2 or 3 episodes ago, when we add a new bot. So if you recall, our bot consists of actually 2 records uh, from 2 tables. The first is the kboard table and the k cards, and they are related by the bot ID. So in a put, what we did was this: we start a transaction because we want everything to either succeed or fail together. We inserted the keyboard and then we inserted a bunch of uh, K cards and then we perform the commit. Uh, to implement the put, what we're going to do is this. We're going to do exactly the same thing. However, there's a slight difference. It's slightly more complicated. What we do is that we'll start with a transaction and then we will actually perform an update of the keyboard, right? So we will have to find the keyboard and then we'll update it. And then what we do is this: instead of comparing every K card for to this particular keyboard, we're just going to delete all the card that are related, all the current card that are related to the board. Okay, and then we'll insert our new card, and then we'll perform the commit. So it's the reason why we are updating the board is because there's only one board, so it's easy to update. But for the cards, sometimes some cards are deleted, some cards are added, and also some cards have values changed. So it's just easier just to drop all the cards and then just reinsert them again. Okay, so this is what we are going to do. So that's the first point. The second point is this: in a post, in a previous post, what we the way we go about doing it was, if you recall, let's have a look at the post. We did everything. We did, sorry, I need to do a find of the persistence. Okay, so we did everything uh, on the client side. That's on the Nest on the Nest side. The way we do is this: we transaction. Oops, transaction of post. Insert. I'm trying to look for the. Okay, so here. So remember here, what we did was that we did everything on the client side. Meaning on the Nest side, we started a transaction, we insert a keyboard, and then we look through all the cards, right? And then we inserted all of them, and then we commit. Okay. So for put, what we're going to do is this: we're going to do something different. We're going to run all this operation, this entire thing, on the server, on the database itself. So what we will do is we will write a store procedure to do this uh, for us. Okay, the way we're going to go about doing so. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And then over here on the nest, what we'll do is that we'll just call the store procedure to execute the query. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to reuse back this guy. So the way store procedure works in MySQL is this. As you recall, the structure for for the update keyboard is actually quite complex, right? So and MySQL store procedure does not does not actually have like a struct type of data structure. So so it'll be quite challenging, to actually pass in to have a store procedure with with very complex parameters to pass this in, right? So the way we're gonna do is this. I'm not sure when, but probably around MySQL like version 5.6. Uh, MySQL have actually added support for JSON. So the way we're going to do about doing this is we're going to pass this whole thing, this whole structure into our store procedure as a JSON object. And then once we pass that in, we will, inside the store procedure, we will destructure it by extracting the values, and then we will insert them one at a time. If you're interested in seeing the MySQL store procedures, so this is the store procedure, some of the functions, okay, for JSON. Okay, this is actually version 5.7. What we want is the version 8. MySQL JSON. Uh, okay, so this is the version 8 reference manual. Okay, so we'll be looking at some of these operations. Okay, right. So let's go ahead and do this. So the way we're going to do this is going to be like this. We will first of all, I'm just going to write out the store procedure and just to test it first before we actually add it to our integrate it with our application. I'm going to simulate the update here. I'm going to define a a uh, a variable, okay, and this variable is going to be our our record. So that's our variable. Okay, so we're going to pass this thing into our store procedure, right? Okay, so the next thing that we'll do is this. Since I'm going to test this, I'm going to write a statement here to drop the store procedure and to recap because I'll be up doing this many times. Okay, so drop procedure if exists. I'm going to call my store procedure update kboard. Okay, and then I need to change the delimiter, and I'll explain this shortly. What I'm actually doing here. As you know, MySQL uses a semicolon to terminate the statement. So a store procedure is to MySQL is just one 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 SQL statement. Okay, so it's terminated by semicolon. Unfortunately, inside the store procedure has its own delimiter, which is semicolon. So if you have semicolon, then you're going to confuse the MySQL shell or the MySQL interpreter interpreting that. So we're going to change the delimiter for the outside. So when we're defining the store procedure, we say the delimiter is a double slash or anything you want, right? So MySQL will know that the entire string is a store procedure, and then inside the store procedure we will reuse back the semicolon. Okay. So if you don't understand, this is what we're going to do. We're going to create procedure, and then we'll call it update keyboard, right? So begin, and then we do end. So this is actually the stop procedure. So this the double slash here is the delimiter to say that we have end our statement. So inside here we're going to use semicolon for the stop procedure. Our stop procedure is going to take two parameters. The first parameter is an in parameter. Okay. So if you have done if you have written IDL files like for Cobra or COM, it's very similar. So in procedure means the parameter in parameter means we are passing in the parameter. So I will call this record and the type is JSON. So the JSON is a valid MySQL type. And the second parameter will be out parameter, which are called OK. And this is a Boolean type. So the out parameter is a parameter that when we call the sort procedure, we will pass it in. So the way we're going to do it is like this. So let me just write this down here. So let's say I've got I'm going to say false. Okay, so the way I'm going to call this like this: call update kboard. I'll pass in the first one, which is the rec, and then the second one, which is okay. Right. So I can look at the. So what happens here is this: the rec will go in here, the OK, which is this guy, will go in here. And the reason why there's out is because if we make a modification in here like this, okay, this will change this value, which will get it out from here. If you have done, like Pascal programming, you will know that, this is in Pascal is called, pass by reference, whereas this is like pass by value. Okay, and then now I can just, after I make any modification here, I can just go select and okay, just look at the value. The okay here tells me, whether the operation is successful or not. Okay, so that's how we're going to go about doing that. So inside the prop procedure, the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to destructure our record. We're going to pull out all these values, destructure record. Okay, and we're going to start by going set board ID equals to. We're going to use the JSON value. Okay, we're going to use JSON value, and we're going to pass in the rec or record. The second parameter is the JSON path. Okay, so JSON path. So this this notation like this. Okay, so so we want this value. We'll say dollar dot board ID. Okay, and then we need to convert it into a type. So if you recall, our schema for board ID is character 8. So we'll say returning char 8. So that's board ID. The next one we do is title. This is title. Title, if you recall, is it's varchar. So varchar for varchar, oops. For varchar we okay. So I think there's something wrong with the. So let me just run this again. Okay, there's something wrong with the formatting. Okay, so for varchar you don't put the returning, you just do that. Okay, and then the third one is created by. Created by is user ID. This is created by. Okay. So there's also a varchar, so we don't put returning. The fourth one is comment. Again, it's the same. Comments is also a varchar, so we don't put returning. The fifth one is created on. We cannot actually update the created on. For our case, we cannot actually update created on. We also cannot update the board ID. Okay. However, we will need this, for some other operations. So I'm going to show you how to actually get the value of the created on, but we won't be using it. Okay. So we will say that on. We're going to go JSON value record. So we'll say created on. Okay. And since this is time, we're going to be returning unsigned. Okay. And if you recall, our time is millisecond. So we need to divide it by 1,000. And then we're going to use the from Unix time to convert it into the uh, the the seconds, the time that MySQL accepts. The next one we're going to do, so we've got board ID, we've got title created by comments. So the last one is the cards. Okay, so we just extract out the whole thing as a JSON array. We won't be processing it just yet. So we'll say JSON value record. We'll say cards, right? Returning JSON. And then finally, one last thing, we are also going to need the length uh, of the of the cards afterwards when we do looping. So let me get the length of the cards first. Cards length. Okay. So for this, we will use the JSON length. We use the JSON length. Okay. And then we will just say, give me the length of the cards. Like that. Okay. So let's have a look at the values. We'll look at some of the values, not all. We'll say like the bot ID. Maybe we want to look at the created on, and then let's look at cards, and then the cards length. Okay, so oops, the first one should be at that side. Okay, so we can run this guy. Let's run this guy. So you go source. The file name is test SQL. Right. Oh, okay. So I've got an error. Oh, yeah, I forgot to put semicolon. Okay, let's try again. Right. JSON path expression. That's okay here. I should have a dot. Okay. Any more? No more. Okay, so let's run this again. Cuts length, unknown column cuts length. Oh, missed the add sign. Okay, finally. So that's the data that we have extracted. The bot ID, the created on, that's the time. Uh, the the cards. So we notice that this is an array, and then the length is 4. So we just confirm. So we got 4, right? So now we have extracted that. Let me comment this guy out. The next thing we want to check. The next thing we want to check is we want to check if uh, the 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 user ID. Sorry. The next thing we want to check is the card actually exists or not. So we want to check the bot ID. We want to perform a select on the bot ID and the user ID to retrieve the card. If we cannot retrieve it, then we will say it's an error, right? So we want to check if card if kboard exists. Okay, and the way we do this is this. We will just do a set rec count equals to 0. We're going to count, so it should only return 1. So we're going to say 0. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to perform a select count into the rec count, okay, from the kboard table where the bot ID is equals to the bot ID and the user ID is equals to the user ID. Okay, so now we can perform an if statement to check. So we can say if rec count, right, is less than or equals to 0. So what we'll do is this: we'll construct a message first. Say concat, okay, uh, bot does not exist. Then we say bot ID bot ID, and then user ID user ID. So that's the message that we want to return. Then we'll raise an exception by doing something called a signal. Okay, signal, and we want to raise exception, and we use a SQL state. We'll define our own state. So I will just call this maybe 44444, right? If you're Chinese, it's very bad luck. And then we'll say set message x is equals to message. Okay, so this is the syntax. So you can raise a signal for 4 4s, and then we can say okay, spell incorrectly, message message tag equals to that message, right? So we raise this signal. So let's see what happens. Okay, so when this happens, what we want to do is this: we want to set the OK to false, and we also later on we're going to perform a transaction. So we also want to roll back a transaction. In MySQL procedure, there's something called the exit handler. So it's like a try catch block. This is like a catch section, and you have to define it right at the top of the procedure. So we'll go declare exit handler, okay, for SQL exception. So this is not only just SQL state, but any exception later on that we may encounter. Begin and so we first thing we want to do is that we want to roll back. We want to roll back transaction if there's any, and then we want to set the OK to false, right? Sorry, set the OK to false, and then we'll resignal. Resignal basically means rethrow the exception. Okay, so let's go and try this guy out. Let's first of all load this first to see if we have any error, and then we will try this thing out. So let's load this first to see if there's any error. Okay, so no error. So we will now go back to our card here, record here, and we'll just change Fred to Freddy. Okay, so there's no such record as that, and we'll run this again. We should now get an exception. So notice that we'll throw this SQL state. The bot this two ID doesn't exist. So there's no bot with this bot ID and this user. Okay. So our exception handler is working. Let me change this back to Fred. Exception handler is working. Okay. After that, the next thing we will do now is this. We will now begin our series of transaction. So we will create a transaction. We will update our bot. Then we'll delete the cards. We'll insert the new cards. So we'll begin the transaction by doing start transaction. And to end the transaction, commit will end the transaction. So that's everything's okay. We will perform a commit. The first thing we'll do is this. We will update kboard. So we'll use the SQL update statement. Update kboard. Okay. Let's look at this. Let's look at this, right? Let's look at this. So we can only update the title. We can update the user because in case I may want to give this user may want to give the bot to another user. We can update the comments. We cannot update the created on title, and we can update all these cards, right? So the three things: the title, the comments, and created by. So we will update the user ID, the comments, and the title. The title in front. Okay. Sorry. Update is like this. So this is the update set. What was that? The user ID. So we record the user ID. Then we will say the title goes to the title, and also the last one is the comments. Comments. Okay. Then I'm just going to copy the where statement from here, where that is equal to that. So we want to say the bot do all this, and then we perform an update based on this user, right? So the next thing we'll do is this. we will delete all our kboard. So we will say delete from kcut, not kboard, sorry, kcut. Okay, where the board ID is equals to the board ID. Okay, so then the next thing we will do is that now we will insert the new kcuts, the updated kcuts. Okay, let me move this guy down here. Okay, so we'll create a variable. We're going to look through it by doing this. We'll set it 0 first, get the length, and then we'll say, where, sorry, while $I, sorry, at I is less than cut length, do, while. So we'll perform the insert in here. Since there are many inserts, we're going to use a prepare statement. Okay, so we'll say prepare. And we'll call this up insert kcut. Okay, from say insert into kcut. So if you've forgotten how the kcut looks like, let's have a look at the schema for kcut. So let me just split this up. So the schema for kcut is this thing. So we don't insert ID because that's auto increment. So we will insert this, and this. Okay. So insert into kcut board ID description. Description and priority. Okay, so that's our prepare statement. Sorry. Okay, values. That okay. Let's go back and close this guy. So we will create a prepare statement. I just spot a mistake. Board ID. Okay, so insert into kcut the board ID, the description, and the priority. So now we start to look. We're going to use we're going to extract out, we're going to select each one of this board here. So remember, this is the array of our cards, the cards array of our cards. So we're going to use the JSON indexing to, JSON path, to index and extract our value. So we will do this. We'll say set at idx equals to concat So we are actually going to create something like this. Like if I'm accessing 0, that would be like this from the element, the 0 element, right? So we say get the, so we say get the cut. Okay, so we use JSON extract to extract the array. We'll say at cuts, and then we pass in our index. So this will give us one cut. Okay. Now we'll destructure the cut. We'll say set description, okay, equals to JSON value, right? So we say cut, and we will the path is like this, dot description, and then the next one is priority. So we just go. Now we got that. So now we will use this with our prepare statement. you go execute the insert kcard using the values of the first value is the bot ID. So we already have the bot ID. Oops, the bot ID. The second is the description. And the third is the priority. So we will just execute that. After finish that, we will update our increment our value on one. Okay. So it's actually quite a standard program, except that it's a little bit verbose. The MySQL language is a little bit verbose. Anyway, just and then after that, we need to deallocate. We need to release our store procedures by saying deallocate, prepare, and then insert kcard. Okay, so let's look at the whole procedure again. We first of all destructure, and then we check if the card that we are going to update exists by selecting the card with the user ID and the bot ID. If it doesn't exist, then we raise a signal, right? So what the exception handler do, or in this case, the exit handler do is that it performs a rollback. It sets the OK value to false, and then we do a resignal, right? We throw the exception. Otherwise, if we actually found it, then we start the transaction. We update our bot according to our scheme here. We update the bot, and we delete all the current K cards, and then we look through. We create a prepare statement. Okay, the prepare statement is to insert new cards back into the bot, and then we just look through the whole thing, extracting one value at a time, and then updating and inserting it, and then we release the resource associated with the prepare statement, and then we perform a commit, and then we say, okay, we are done, right? So let's before we do anything, let's check. Let me comment on this card. Let's check to see if that we have any syntax error first before we actually do the update. So let's run this again. There is a syntax error here. Set description. Okay, I forgot a semicolon. Okay, so let's now look at the select all from kboard. Okay, so notice the updated for this guy. Order by created on descending, right? So notice the updated on, this is null. So now hopefully if I'm going to perform the update, that value will get updated. So let's perform this thing, guy. Okay, so notice the OK is now 1. So let's look at the select keyboard again. Oops, what happened? Yeah. Oh. So we call updated. We perform the update, right? We insert the keycard. Okay. I'm not sure what happened. Let's try this again. So we need to save this guy. Okay, let's just run this again. So that's okay. Okay, I'm not sure what happened. So let me just pause this to check first, and then I'll come back. Okay, I accidentally stopped the recording instead of pausing. Anyway, I'm not sure what happened. Why is it not updated? It didn't do the updated thing, but if you notice that we have actually updated our bot. Okay, so I'm not sure why this is not showing updated because if you recall our schema has got updated on the current timestamp. So if we perform an update of the keyboard, that should actually show up. So I'm not sure why. So let me go and investigate later on. And maybe I will update this. I'll give you. I'll let you know. what happened in a, in a separate uh, episode. So let me just do this one more time. Okay, so oh, okay, so we definitely know that it has been updated. So let me do this. Let me insert another one and see what happens. Okay, I want to post. So this is a post. Okay, so grab this ID. Okay, so let's have a look at this first. So I've got another one. So this is the new one. Okay, so this is the new one. So let me just do an update. Let me just perform an update on this. See what happens. Okay, so that's updated. Okay, keyboard. Hmm, I'm not sure why this is not updated. Okay. Anyway, doesn't matter. We will proceed. So we have got uh, our store procedure. Okay. What we'll do now is this. I'm going to transfer this instead of putting here. I'm going to transfer this to the main schema. Uh, this this test is just our this is just a scratch pad schema, and I'll just add it down here. Okay, so stop procedure. Right. Okay, so we are done, and I just want to check the stop procedure is there, so we can look at stop procedure by doing this. Show procedure status. If you do this, there's a lot, so we can't see. We need to go like update. Okay, so that's my store that's my store procedure. Okay, so update kboard. So we're going to go back to our board here, and we're going to implement this store procedure. So this is the persistent service, and what we're going to do is this: we're going to use the same technique of invoking, calling the store procedure using this manner. So we're going to set a variable, we're going to call it, and then we're going to get the value back out. Okay, so we're going to do this. Yeah. So we will write. I'm going to write a store procedure statement here. SQL update kboard. Okay, and then we'll say set at OK equals to false. Then we're going to call kboard update kboard. Okay, we pass in the uh, we're going to pass in our JSON object here. Okay, and then here we're going to pass in the OK statement, and then finally we're just going to say select. Okay, we display the result. So this is the result that we are going to get. For this to work, we need to enable multi-statement. By default, the MySQL driver only supports execution of one statement. So we are going to, oops. So we are going to uh, enable multi-statement, and in the configuration of the MySQL, you say multi-statements. The default is false, so we set it to true. Okay, so now let's implement uh, the the method go private update kboard. That is make query function. Okay, now we will go to here. Oops, where's the part where, okay, so here update kboard, make query, select SQL update. Right. So now we will go and implement our update step. Our update. What we need to do is this. We need to go to add to our interface an update method. Do something like this. Update kboard. Oops, maybe not. Let me do this. Use this guy. Update kboard. So the type is going to be a kboard, and we're going to return a boolean value to say that if the update is successful. Okay. So we will come here and maybe we'll put it here. So let's return true first. We will now call, as usual, we'll go result. Okay. Await is update kboard. Okay, so we'll pass in the kboard as a JSON, as a string. So we need to stringify it. JSON stringify. We'll stringify the board. Okay. So this. Okay. So this thing get passed into here. The first parameter here. This guy here. Okay, so the result actually comes back is a three-dimensional array, 3D array. Okay, so the first D is the number of statements, number of SQL statements. So let me just move this down here. The first D is the number of SQL statements that was executed. So in our case, 3 statements were executed. In our case, 3. The second dimension, the second dimension, is the result of execution of every statement. Okay, result of every statement, and the third, okay, is the field. So the third so the second one is actually the record, right? Record, and the third one is the field. Okay, the fields of each record. So in our case, right, so to get our result, if you come back to what we're looking for, so our result, if you look at this, right, so we've got 3 statements, right? 3 statements. So we are interested in the first, in the last one. So in our case, the last one is 2. Okay, and then this will return an array. So this will return an array. So we'll pick the first result. Okay. So here we've got the results. Okay. So now we will. So the result. So now we'll pick the last value. So let's call this OK. Result 2. The last statement, right? So if you recall, again in the get, right, this will be an array of fields, right? So array of fields. So now we want the first record, which is 0, right? And then the type is at OK. The field is at type OK. So this value OK is going to be either 0 or 1. So we can do a console info. To look at this guy. Okay, I'll just call it OK. And then the value is OK. So we're going to return true or false. So we'll just do like this. Okay, to convert it into Boolean. So that's our update. So in this case, our update is relatively easy. Performing the update is relatively easy. So second statement. Okay. So the select returns one record, and the name of the field is OK. we'll now add this to our we'll now add this to our method. So this thing here. Let's go here. Okay, so we will do the same thing. We will just do a try, catch. Again, if there is any error, we will just those things. So we will just say this. We will say this is update put kboard. Okay, so we will go const response. Okay, it goes to let's do this one first. Let's do result. Goes to this kboard db update. Kboard will pass in the payload. Okay, and we'll just return the result. Just return the result. It's updated. We can remove these guys. Okay, so let's have a look at the let's have a look at executing this. So let me grab the order by created form. Okay, so let's try to update this guy. So this is the bot. Notice the bot ID is going to be different. So the first time when we try to do this, we are going to get an error because this is what we're going to do. Let's clear this first. Okay. So this is what we're going to do. We are going to replace this with this ID, right? So both of them are different. So we're going to get an error. We should get error, and we should be able to see our error message. Okay. So notice that incorrect bot ID. Okay. So that's good. So let me go and update the kboard ID. So this one, let me change this to this bot ID. Okay, we're going to test the second one, which is the error, the exception inside the store procedure. Okay, so this is now the second one. So we should now get an exception, the signal from our store procedure. So you notice that this is the signal from the store procedure. The bot does not exist. Okay, from the from our store procedure. Okay, the error from our store procedure. Okay, so this is okay, good. So now we know that it's working. And then finally, I'm just going to change back from Freddy to Fred. Okay, let me do another post of a new bot. Copy this guy. Okay, paste this here. So now we're going to perform the update of this new thing. Put 5. Okay, so this one should be successful now. Right, so we have updated it. So let's go and have a look. Okay, and then we'll look at the K cards. Okay, so the third one, the EE, which we've just updated, the E00. Okay, so that's the batch that we have updated. Okay. So finally, we want to return a response envelope. So we'll go and create our response envelope. Okay, the response envelope is very simple. this is update, this put kboard response extends, and then the data is just boolean. So here we will change this to put kboard put response. Oops, can't remember what's the name. Put kboard response. Add this to the top. Put kboard response. Let me just maybe format this a little bit. Okay, and then we'll return this. This will say constant result response. Make response. Put kboard response, and then we'll go HTTP status. Okay, and then we will assign this to response data. This is await. And then finally we'll return the response. Okay, so let's try the whole thing again. And we get our response. So finally, one last thing. We will do the Open API spec. Okay, we'll copy from get. Oops. Yep. Okay. Oh, 404 is okay. So we're going to do an update. So we'll say update kboard, and this one we will just say update kboard by user ID and bot ID. So the parameters are the same. The success is 200. Okay, and the response type is going to be put kboard response. The error, if you recall, it's the error is. Let me just have a look at it again. Controllers. The error is. The error is. Let's see what's the error. Okay, the error is one of the error is bad request. I think bad request is 400. So this is 400. Just let me just check. Okay, 400 is bad request, so that's correct. So this is bad request. Okay. So currently we're just returning a string. Okay, so everything else is the same. So we've got the not update put. So everything else is okay except for we haven't done the response. So you'll just do the response. Response is the same as a delete. Put, and then everything else is exactly the same. So let's before we do anything, let's just check first by using the Open API generator validate I backend. Okay, so no validation detected. We'll just look at it in the Insomnia designer. We won't actually run it. We'll just make sure that we can actually see it. So our path, we'll see the new method here, delete. And if you open this up, we will see the old method, another method here, delete. Okay, so that's the end of this episode. So we have covered all the four CRUD method. The first get here returns a list of IDs. The second method post allows us to insert. This one returns a single ID. This is update and this is the delete. Okay, so we have completed the CRUD. In the next episode, we're going to look at adding more features into our backend application by doing things like validation, having a common response for all errors. Till then, uh, you know, till next time. I'll see you. Stay safe.